Most exciting destination in all of northern Wisconsin. LCO Casino Lodge and Convention Center, Hayward. LCO.
Hello, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, September 29th. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryTV.com. And here's the news for today from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke recently to the United Nations General Assembly, offering an apology to the Indigenous communities of Canada. As Canada celebrates its 150th birthday, Trudeau used this time as an opportunity to reconcile with the long-neglected Indigenous communities. He noted that the significance of Indigenous peoples in Canada, remarking, "For First Nations, Métis Nations, Inuit peoples in Canada, those early colonial relationships were not about strength through diversity or a celebration of our differences. For Indigenous peoples in Canada, the experience was mostly one of humiliation, neglect, and abuse." Trudeau recognized Canada's mishandling of the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which Canada actively campaigned against 10 years ago and is now working to repair. According to the Prime Minister, they are now a full supporter of the Declaration, stating in partnership with Indigenous peoples, we're moving ahead with a thorough review of federal laws, policies, and operational practices to get our house in order. First Nations Development Institute has released 2 free resources that are valuable to Native American tribes, communities, and organizations in conducting food sovereignty assessments or to Native ranchers seeking to develop sound conservation plans for their enterprises. The reference guide for community food assessments offers a survey of topics that individuals and communities will come across when assessing their local food systems. And a conservation planning guide for Native American ranchers was created with funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resource Conservation Service and the Christensen Fund. The development of conservation plan provides a roadmap for ranchers to accomplish the goals of keeping their ranch land healthy and productive, increase herd health, and boost production and profitability while protecting the ecosystem and wildlife for future generations. For more information, you can check out firstnations.org. A retired California professor gave $250,000 to a northeastern Utah tribe to compensate for her great-grandparents profiting off of land near Craig, Colorado that once belonged to the tribe. The Salt Lake Tribune reports that the leaders of the Ute tribe accepted the check and welcomed Christine Sleater to their community. Sleater says that her ancestors were given a 160-acre plot outside Craig under the Homestead Act in 1882. The land was previously home to the tribe that was forcibly removed in 1881. Sleater and her siblings inherited the money that was invested by her great-grandparents after they sold the Colorado land decades later. Tribal officials say the money will help fund the construction of a new facility to replace their current high school. The Lighton Rancheria tribe near San Francisco, California has pledged $1 million in relief funding for victims of Hurricane Harvey in Texas, which will be used to help the damaged city rebuild and rehouse its residents. Members of the Lighton Band of Poma Indians, which owns and operates California's San Pueblo Lighton Casino, offers their support to hurricane victims as the state of Texas continues to appeal for donations to the relief fund. It has been just over a month since Hurricane Harvey swung into Texas and brought devastating flooding upon the state, with Houston badly affected by the rising water levels. The Lighton Rancheria and its casino are well known for their charitable efforts, with $18.5 million in recorded donations. Conservation specialists and government officials are trying to encourage people across the country to work on attracting butterflies. Recent studies suggest that butterfly population in North America has decreased by more than 90% and could be extinct in 20 years. Researchers say declining numbers of milkweed plants, which are essential to monarch survival, worsens the drop. There's a reason milkweed is such an integral part of the monarch conservation. It's the only plant that the butterfly will lay its eggs on, and the only plant that the caterpillars will eat. A lot of gardeners, however, hate milkweed. The plant has a reputation as an invasive and ugly nuisance that many residents and governments historically have worked to remove. Community governments and Native American tribes are now working together to increase monarch populations. Hundreds of cities across the country have signed on to a monarch pledge organized by the National Wildlife Federation. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me and have a grand day.